Well, it's a very warm welcome and thank you for joining me on this independent off-tube studio commentary. The game at St James's Park has just got underway. Newcastle United in 8th place, taking on Everton in 16th. And Newcastle will be buoyed after that last-minute win against West Ham at the weekend. But pretty bleak for them at one stage, going 3-1 down early on in the second half. But were able to bring things back and get that late win, a fabulous strike from Harvey Barnes late in injury time. Whereas for Everton, it's been a bleak 2024 so far, barring one win in the FA Cup against Crystal Palace. It's been no league wins for Everton in 2024. They've got to start picking up some points from somewhere, with sides below them showing signs of fight. Everton start the night 3 points clear of the relegation zone. Newcastle already in possession here, trying to push forward. I'll just remind you of the two teams very quickly. It's Martin Dubravka in goal for Newcastle. A back for Emil Kraft, Fabian Schär, Dan Burn and Lewis Hall. The three in midfield are Sean Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes and Elliot Anderson, with Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes and Alexander Isak as the attacking three. For Everton, Jordan Pickford in goal. A back four of Ben Godfrey, James Tarkowski, Jared Branthwaite and Vitaly Mikalenko. Four in midfield, Ashley Young and Dwight McNeil are the two wide men, with Idrissa Gueye, Amadou Onana and Abdoulaye Doucouré as the three central midfielders. Beto is the lone frontman, and a good long ball here to pick out Barnes, that he's trying to set run off down the left-hand side. It was a good one as well, all breaking into the box, but that's good work there, cutting the ball out. Godfrey getting it back to Pickford, getting a ball back from Jordan Pickford and then clearing it down the right-hand side. A bit of an askew clearance there from Godfrey. It's out for a throw to Newcastle, which is taken very quickly. The ball is now with Isak at the edge, and he goes for goal. It deflects into the path of Barnes, whose strike is saved by Pickford. Ball's at the edge of the area on the right-hand side. It's now with Murphy. He cuts it back, but the ball is played away from the edge of the penalty area. Hall diving in, trying to keep that ball alive for Newcastle when he manages it. It's played down the right-hand side now. Murphy with a ball in towards Longstaff. Longstaff into the 6-yard box. It's sort of stabbed clear, really, by Branthwaite before there's a bit more distance put on that clearance by McNeil up towards the halfway line. But this is a bright start from Newcastle. Of course, they were up in front very early against West Ham after an early penalty, and they're trying to replicate that bright start here. It's down the right-hand side, cross in from Murphy, just a little bit too short to reach Longstaff. It's cleared back into midfield. Doucouré straight away under pressure, and Newcastle are not giving Everton a moment's rest here. It's straight back down the right-hand side. Kraft thought about a cross, but just decides to play it back in towards Bruno Guimaraes. It's now back with Murphy, pushing to a penalty here, trying to thread a ball through towards Isak. That's good work though from Branthwaite, able to just see that problem off, and then he plays a lovely ball here to pick out Doucouré on the halfway line. He tries a quick pass down the right-hand side, and suddenly Everton are on the attack. It's Ashley Young. He skips away from Lewis Hall, but then the ball into the box from Ashley Young. Well, it's whether it's combination of Onana, Doucouré going to the wrong place there. Looked to me as though both of them were trying to push into the penalty area on the left-hand side. Ball in from Ashley Young was just over their heads and out for a goal kick. But a good response from Everton, a quick counter. You would imagine that that's how the game is going to have to go for Everton this evening. They're not really going to be able to put too much pressure on Newcastle to sort of wear them down in terms of long possession in midfield. They're going to have to try and do something, getting them on the counter. They have got a little bit of pace in McNeil and Beto. There is one other game being played right now. It's the game between Nottingham Forest and Fulham. That game is also available on our service, as indeed are all the later kickoffs. There are two games kicking off at 7:45. Bournemouth against Crystal Palace and Burnley against Wolves. And then the 8:15 kickoff this evening is West Ham against Tottenham. Anything happens in those games, we'll of course keep you updated. We're going to get a break in play here now, though, because there's a bit of a head collision here. Clash of heads between, it looks like Dan Burn and Beto. And it's Burn who's come off worse there. Beto is sort of holding his forehead, but he's still on his feet. Burn on the other. Ooh, that's a nasty one. Proper clash of heads there between Beto and Dan Burn. And yeah, he looks like he's been in a boxing match there, does Dan Burn, the way he just picks himself up. It's no issue, of course, between the two players. A quick high five, and they're able to play on. In the end, Dan Burn didn't need any medical assistance, but it looked initially like he might have done. It really was a strong collision there with Beto. Lewis Hall now trying to play a crossfield pass. It's cut out by Beto, but Newcastle get a slice of luck in that deflection off Beto. Ends up with Fabian Schär anyway. He then switches play. It's a long, good ball down the left-hand side to pick out Harvey Barnes. And there's an overlap here as well from Longstaff. The ball into the penalty area, swept clear by Onana. And Barnes was looking for a free kick there, I think, for minimal contact of Ashley Young. Referee Tony Harrington not interested. It's Doucouré now bringing the ball forward for Everton. Gets stopped by Bruno Guimaraes. Leaves the ball for Ashley Young. Onana playing it square now to Idrissa Gueye. Over towards the left-hand side. Space here for Vitaly Mikalenko. Back into Idrissa Gueye. This is the first sort of bit of steady possession Everton have had in midfield, really. It's taken them 5.5 minutes. But Sean Dyche won't worry, of course. He would have known that there would have been a lively start here from Newcastle. He was trying to get that hugely passionate home crowd on side as early as possible. That's a great long ball, though, to pick out McNeil. And McNeil then tees up Doucouré, who goes for goal. Left-footed strike. And it's not a bad effort from Doucouré. He is always rising, though. There were a couple of options for him to try and play it square as well. Young and Beto were in the penalty area. But let's just see, this is Pickford. So often the starter of Everton moves here. Pickford, great long ball to pick out McNeil. Great bit of touch there from McNeil to take the ball down. But when Doucouré has that first touch, there are options. He could have looked to played it square to Ashley Young. Or trying to pick out a pass to Beto as well. But straight away on the touchline, we see Sean Dyche applauding that one, shouting, well done. His side just starting to find their feet in terms of some attacking possession. Down the right-hand side here for Isak to chase. Just a little bit too long for him, though. Easy there for Mikalenko to leave that one. And he goes back towards his own keeper. Long clearance from Pickford again. Towards the halfway line. That's not a good header from Bruno Guimaraes. He goes straight to Beto. And Beto now heading towards the penalty area. He hits the deck just before the edge of the box. And I think it's Emil Kraft that's given the free kick away. It looked like certainly the reaction of the Newcastle fans rather than the players. They were furious here. They felt as though Beto just lost his balance. And I'll tell you what, looking at that replay, I'm not so sure that Emil Kraft's done anything wrong here, as he has perhaps stuck. He hasn't stuck a leg out at all, unless his body's just gently clipped Beto as he's been running, and then Beto loses his balance. But that, I've got to say, that's quite an unlucky one there for the Newcastle right back to give that free kick away. It is going to be a good opportunity here now for Everton. It's only about 5 yards from the edge of the area on the left-hand side. It's quite wide here for McNeil, so there's certainly no chance of a shot. This is going to be a left-footed cross here from Everton's number 7. Newcastle level with the penalty spot in terms of the offside. It goes towards the 6-yard box. It's a header over the bar. And a frustrated look there from James Tarkowski, because it's his header that goes over. He's not offside, he's not particularly well marked, but he's always got Dan Burn for company just in front of him. It just makes that a little bit more difficult. And Tarkowski actually does well to leap over Dan Burn, but in doing that, he's not able to keep the header down. And it's just a little bit too high there. You can see a very frustrated Sean Dyche, because his side were under pressure in the first 3 or 4 minutes of this game. But now they've responded with a couple of decent chances, albeit both of them off target. But the effort from Doucouré, strike from the edge of the box, and then that header from Tarkowski from the edge of the 6-yard box, certainly giving Everton some positive return for their good start in this game. Still goalless here at St James's Park, goalless at the City Ground as well, between Forest and Fulham. Of course, Everton will be a very interested party in what Nottingham Forest can do in that game, as Newcastle push forward now down the left-hand side. A ball played into Harvey Barnes. He was tripped by James Tarkowski. Newcastle wanted to take the free kick quickly, but actually decided against it in the end. Bruno Guimaraes, you could see that not enough of his teammates were in position. It's a short ball to Lewis Hall, and then the pass to Longstaff. He was challenged immediately, loses the ball, and then it's Ashley Young just playing that off Lewis Hall, and it goes out for a throw to Everton down the right-hand side. Rare start this for Lewis Hall. Doesn't surprise me, though, because to look at some of the stats pages across the internet that have injury lists for every club. I mean, Newcastle, you almost need to scroll down to see all of it in one go. It really is quite incredible to see all the players that they currently have missing. And, of course, can add Anthony Gordon to that in terms of a suspension after that second yellow that he picked up late on in the game. But you have to say that it's still a fairly strong bench, though, from Newcastle, I would argue, with Diallo, Willock, White, Parkinson, Dummett, Ritchie. Also got Murphy, Karius and Gillespie on their bench as well as young Parkinson. But just shows you as well the fact that they're having to name 2 goalkeepers on their bench. It's always a sign that a team are potentially struggling in terms of filling out their entire matchday squad because of injuries. Here come Everton, though, down the right-hand side. Godfrey's pushed forward. His ball in towards with Ashley Young, who's trying to force a corner kick. He's furious here, Young, that the decision has gone against him. He claims that he deflected the ball off Dan Burn. Let's just see whether or not Ashley Young has any arguments here to say that he was correct. Did well initially to get away from Dan Burn. What is the challenge from Longstaff? Sometimes it's just the way in which the players appeal, I think, that sometimes can make a difference to the referee. It's just the fact that Newcastle was so nonchalant there, Longstaff just making out as though it's an obvious goal kick ref. Maybe that swung the referee's decision, because it could have been a corner. But here come Newcastle now, and there's space down the right-hand side. Bruno Guimaraes picking out Kraft. His ball into the box is not too far away from Alexander Isak, but that's a good challenge. Branthwaite in the right place at the right time to make sure that one deflects out for a corner kick. A chance now for Newcastle from the set piece. Space down the right there for Kraft, but it was also good work from Branthwaite to get himself into that position. And it will be a corner kick now. Left-footed in-swinger from the right-hand side. It's Lewis Hall standing over this one. Newcastle got quite an interesting setup here in and around the 6-yard box. So very specific spots here that Newcastle players have picked out rather than all trying to flood around Jordan Pickford. This may well be something off the training ground, specifically designed for Everton. We'll wait and see what kind of ball we're going to see here from Hall. It's whipped in towards the back post. Isak heading that one across the 6-yard box. It then drops to Murphy, who goes for goal, but his shot is charged down immediately by Dwight McNeil. On the halfway line now, long ball played towards the edge of the penalty area. And one back here quickly chasing down the right-hand side there was McNeil. So the ball is easily going to get back towards goalkeeper Dubravka. And now Murphy with an early ball over the top. It wasn't a bad idea, but it just needed to have a little bit more pace, I think, to actually get away from Tarkowski. He was always favourite to head that before Isak got on the end of it. Now McNeil turning and finding some space, getting into the Everton half. Goes across towards Doucouré. He's got Young on the right-hand side. He's got 3 or 4 players in the box here if he can pick him out. Ashley Young has been closed down at the edge of the area. Goes back towards Godfrey. Now it's Onana into McNeil. Back to Ashley Young. Right-hand edge of the penalty area again. Being closed down here. Ashley Young has got to go back into midfield. Once again, it's Godfrey to Onana. He clips the ball down the right-hand side here for Young. Was an overlap there from Dwight McNeil, but too many Newcastle players back. Everton having to start again here on this right-hand side, and Young's ball this time is picked out by Bruno Guimaraes. He actually manages to deflect that off Amadou Onana as well, so it's out for a Newcastle throw. Early goal to tell you about in the other game that's kicked off at 7:30 this evening. It's Nottingham Forest 1, Fulham 0, and it's Callum Hudson-Odoi with the goal. Morgan Gibbs-White with the assist, but a big goal that's for Nottingham Forest. And of course, desperate to pick up points, make up the points deduction that they've had. Looking at the table live, Everton, if they were to go on and draw this game, which they are doing at the moment, and Forest were to go on and win, there would only be a points difference between the two sides. Forest would be in 17th, Everton 16th. Here come Newcastle down the right-hand side with Jacob Murphy. He's crossed into the box. He's aiming for Harvey Barnes. Good header away there from Godfrey. It needed to be because Harvey Barnes was lurking there at the edge of the 6-yard box. And if Godfrey hadn't have been there, get the feeling that Barnes would have had a fairly easy route to goal. It's good work here from Murphy to find space for the cross. And it's actually really good positioning there from Godfrey to make sure that that one is away from danger at the expense of a corner kick. It is going to be Jacob Murphy to take it here from the left-hand side. He's got players to aim for inside the penalty area. Slightly different setup from the earlier corner kick we saw from Lewis Hall from the right. It's going to be an in-swinger of Murphy, headed forward there by Harvey Barnes. It's stopped at the edge of the 6-yard box before it's punted clear by Ashley Young up towards the halfway line. Kraft was the last man back for Newcastle. He heads it forward. It's another header on there from Murphy, but that's just a little bit too much on that one, and it gets through quite easily towards Jordan Pickford. Just to remind you, it's 3 games on our service tomorrow, all from the Premier League as well. Arsenal against Luton and Brentford against Brighton. Those are both 7:30 kickoffs, and then the 8:15 offering from the Etihad is Manchester City against Aston Villa, and then wrapping up this midweek round of fixtures on Thursday. I'll interrupt myself though, because just as I say that, Newcastle are on the attack. It's a ball played through to Isak. Isak is onside. He cuts past Pickford and it's in the back of the net. On 15 minutes, Newcastle United take the lead. And it's out of nothing really. Everton caught in possession inside their own half. Ball played through towards Isak. There's no offside. He danced away from two defenders and then curled it past Jordan Pickford into the back of the net. And they'll be frustrated with that one, Sean Dyche, because his side weathered a bit of an early storm. They started to get into the game, and just the last few minutes, it's Newcastle that have been in the ascendancy. And another goal for Alexander Isak. And it's a long clearance here from Pickford. Over the halfway line, headed forward by Lewis Hall. Then it's a header from Longstaff. Godfrey rises to it. Next ball comes from Bruno Guimaraes, and he plays one over the top. And you've got to say that really it's bad positioning from Tarkowski more than anything else, because if he's in line with the rest of his teammates, then Isak would have been offside by a couple of yards. But because of where Tarkowski was positioned, there is no offside, and Isak gets away from Tarkowski easily. Branthwaite slides in. Isak is able to just get away from it. Branthwaite commits far too early there, looking at that replay. But Isak was always favourite. Once he got into the box and he had it on his right foot, you always thought he was going to be able to finish that. And high fives all round on the Newcastle bench. Anyhow, Jason Tyndall et al. All very happy with that start their side have made. But, yes, it's frustrating for Everton. It's an avoidable goal, really. To have a goal kick for your own goalkeeper and then essentially 3 or 4 touches later the ball is in your net. That's not good, and Sean Dyche certainly won't be pleased with that. And Newcastle come again here now as the ball's played down the right hand side here. Jacob Murphy, bit of a heavy touch from him there. I think he was hoping to try and force a deflection to get his side a corner. And I actually think, has he got away with it? I think he might have done them. Just a couple of players moving towards the edge of the box, but no, it's not actually going to be a corner kick to Newcastle after all of that. Everton only have 3 points from losing positions this season. Them and Sheffield United have got 3 points. Only Burnley are worse with 2. And then Fulham and Newcastle, interesting enough, both with 6. Newcastle are a side that aren't famous for chasing getting results too often this season. So that's why the comeback against West Ham really was quite something. To be 1-0 up and then 3-1 down and still go on to win the game 4-3. I was lucky enough to commentate on that game, and it really was a crazy game to start what was a very goal-scoring sort of Saturday, really, wasn't it? Loads of goals being scored across the Saturday Easter Saturday fixtures. Newcastle in possession here with Harvey Barnes. He goes back towards Sean Longstaff. Just inside the Newcastle off, over towards the right-hand side for Emil Kraft. Back to Longstaff again. Everton are playing an even higher offside line now. I think they've realised that perhaps they started the game just sitting a little bit too deeply, encouraging potentially for Newcastle to send their wide men like Murphy and Barnes forward. But here is Barnes down the left-hand side alongside Lewis Hall. Chelsea man. Hall skips away from Onana. He breaks into the box. He tries to get across him, but that's really good work, actually. Onana initially looked like he'd been beaten to the ball, but then he was able to get up and win that challenge. And then as the ball is played up towards Beto, he's shoved in the back by Dan Burn. And that has been given as a free kick to Everton, still inside their own half. So, chance now for Eddie Howe. He's not going to be too worried about the start in this game. His side looked very confident in the first few minutes. Then we saw a quick response from Everton, but now Newcastle with this early lead. Just to tell you as well, the next couple of games for Newcastle, both against London opposition. They're away to Fulham at the weekend before a game at home to Spurs the weekend after. As for Everton, they have the small matter of Burnley at home in their next game, an absolutely massive game for Sean Dyche's side, and indeed for Vincent Kompany's side as well. Albeit they showed some fight in recent games. The win against Brentford, the draw against Chelsea, haven't been down to 10 men. The controversy of that penalty as well. And Everton then travel to Chelsea on the 15th. That will be the Monday night game in 13 days' time. So attack here for Newcastle down the left-hand side. It was Elliot Anderson had gone on the overlap, and he was caught there by Amadou Onana. The referee thought about it for a second, but he does give a free kick to Newcastle. And not even sure if Onana We're getting. I was just wondering what the pause in play was, but it's all clear now. Of course, it's just the sun has just gone down, and so those players that are observing Ramadan will now get a chance to break their fast. And a quick pause in play now, whilst we allow whilst the players go off to have their nutrition hits. In the meantime, it's getting worse for Fulham at the City Ground because Chris Wood has just made it 2-0. So a fantastic start for Nottingham Forest there. They, as I say, they're desperate for points, trying to make up the 4 they've had deducted. Still very much in that relegation mix are Nuno Espirito Santo's side to find themselves 2-0 up inside 20 minutes. They will be absolutely delighted with that. So we can see now Isak heading back towards the edge of the Everton penalty area. There with one of his coaching staff as well. Just taking around a minute here for play to resume. But surely we can see now a couple of the players just making their way back onto the field. You can see Newcastle chairperson Amanda Staveley. Can't completely avoid the TV cameras, although I do think quite rightly that, although we'll come back to that in a second, because we've got a free kick here for Newcastle and we're back underway. It was that foul at the edge of the area from Onana, whipped in by Lewis Hall, quickly headed away, and it is out for a throw to Everton down the left-hand side. Anderson couldn't keep that in play. What I was going to say about the Newcastle board and the chairperson and everything else, I think at one stage they were being shown far too often, and it may well be that they themselves said, look, it's fair enough that all sort of managing directors and chairmen are going to be shown on camera, once or twice in a game, but it was getting a little bit over the top at one stage. You can see now Sean Longstaff with a strong challenge. Tony Harrington, our referee, just trying to calm down the Newcastle man. It was Idrissa Gana Gueye who was brought down. Everton have taken the free kick quickly. It's a long ball as well towards the edge of the Newcastle penalty area. That's good work. Godfrey had pushed further forward and it needed a header out from Lewis Hall. Despite the best efforts there from Harvey Barnes, he couldn't keep it in play. So it is out for a throw to Everton. The ball back on the halfway line. It's with Tarkowski. Back towards Pickford. Pickford's clearance down the left-hand side. It's over the head of Mikalenko. Kraft heading it forward towards Jacob Murphy. Now Longstaff towards Fabian Schär. Now to Lewis Hall down the left-hand side. Towards Hall again. He tried to get Harvey Barnes in down the left-hand side. Just too many Everton players in the way. Over on the right here with Kraft. His pass is charged down though by Mikalenko, out for a throw to Newcastle. Possession stat after 23 minutes, 66% possession for Newcastle, 34% for Everton. I think the worry for Sean Dyche will be that his side, they responded well to the initial pressure from Newcastle, but since Newcastle have scored, it's actually been quite difficult for Everton to get any kind of attacking possession at all. Been Newcastle pushing forward time and again. It's nearly 9 minutes since the goal was scored. A ball over the top now looking for Harvey Barnes. And that one is too long. An easy work there for Jordan Pickford to pick that one up for Everton. He's waiting for his teammates to fan out a little bit. He rolls one into Onana. That was a risky one because he was being closed down almost immediately. Even before he got the ball, he was already being closed down there by Anderson. He just about managed to get the ball to Tarkowski. Now it's another risky pass from Onana, this time to Tarkowski again. Going square. Godfrey slides in and he just about deflects that ball off Lewis Hall. But Everton, having to work really hard there just to keep possession, getting up to the halfway line. It's been a difficult 10-minute spell this for the Toffees. Long throw now from Godfrey, headed out, and another throw here to Everton. Godfrey takes it quickly. It's Lewis Hall with the header. Anderson and Bruno Guimaraes almost getting in each other's way. It's Newcastle in possession here. Anderson is tripped by Amadou Onana. Not too much in that, but at the same time, Onana doesn't get the ball, so I think it is probably the right decision. It's a free kick now to be taken. Bruno Guimaraes wanted to take it quickly, just deciding against that, going back towards the edge of his own penalty area. Clearance now. Right-hand side, played up towards Kraft at the edge of the area, who takes it down on the run. He hits the deck inside the penalty area. Not too much of an appeal from him. I think a couple of some of the fans behind the goal there suggesting that perhaps Mikalenko had caught Kraft in mid-air, potentially asking about a penalty. I don't think there's enough in that one, really. Just seeing how the ball was played across, I don't think there's enough contact to even consider a penalty kick there, really. Long clearance now from Pickford towards the halfway line. Onana square to Mikalenko. Challenge there from Idrissa Gueye to win it off Guimaraes, but he couldn't win it off Longstaff, who was just behind him. And now Elliot Anderson brings the ball forward, goes towards Harvey Barnes, breaking into box. Barnes' strike is charged down by Godfrey. Gets a second chance here. Barnes just turns it back in towards Elliot Anderson. It's an overlap from Lewis Hall, but Anderson goes into the box himself, and it's a slightly miscued clearance there from Branthwaite. Didn't really get much distance on it. Anderson and Barnes still hold the ball up here for Newcastle down the left-hand side. It's with Lewis Hall. To cut a long way back, actually, almost towards the halfway line there for Dan Burn, but Newcastle still in possession. Bruno Guimaraes back towards the halfway line. Lewis Hall now back to Dan Burn. Square to Fabian Schär. Of possession now for Newcastle, say almost double Everton's, 66 to 34 as it was a couple of minutes ago. Going to be growing now in these last few minutes, although Isak's pass in midfield there to Bruno Guimaraes is cut out, and now Beto is trying to start a counter-attack for Everton. He wanted a free kick. Now this is, I suppose, one of those grey areas where is Beto having his run stopped by Dan Burn, or is Beto deliberately running into Dan Burn to win a free kick? Referee Tony Harrington going for option B there, doesn't give the Portuguese a free kick. It is still Newcastle in possession. Fabian Schär to Kraft down the right-hand side, heading towards the penalty area. There's an overlap from Jacob Murphy. Prefers to just cut back, though, heading back towards Fabian Schär. Bruno Guimaraes now to Schär again. Everton playing a high offside line, getting away from their own penalty area, trying to condense things, but that's a really good run from Schär. He likes to have those little mazy runs towards the box. Guimaraes now out towards the left-hand side. It's with Elliot Anderson. He's got support from Lewis Hall, but Anderson just choosing to go back towards Bruno Guimaraes himself. Hall again now, looking for, trying to get a cross in, but no options really to get a ball into the box. And then Elliot Anderson feels as though he was fouled there by Ashley Young. Referee says no, but Everton have wasted that chance to go on the counter. Combination of Beto, Onana and McNeil misplacing passes. And now here come Newcastle. It's with Murphy, breaks into the box. He goes for goal, and it's only just over the bar. He really put his foot through that, Jacob Murphy. He has got great goals in him. Remember a fabulous goal he scored against Spurs in that crazy game when Newcastle absolutely demolished Spurs inside the first 20-25 minutes at St James's Park last season. And this wasn't all that different really in terms of Murphy on his right foot, really putting his laces through it, just lifting it over the bar there though. Now to be taken by Jordan Pickford. 28.5 minutes gone. Unofficial, independent, off-tube studio commentary. Newcastle United leading against Everton by a goal to nil. Alexander Isak with the goal for Newcastle. In the other 7:30 kickoff, it's Nottingham Forest 2, Fulham 0. Callum Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood with the goals for Forest. And we are now 14 minutes in to the 7:45 kickoffs this evening, and it is currently goalless between Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, and Burnley and Wolves. Still to come in 15 minutes' time when we have kickoff at the London Stadium, where West Ham take on Spurs. All those games are available on our service. But here come Everton now. It's a ball down the right-hand side, which Beto gets to first, and Beto goes on the run. He goes for goal, and that is the wrong option. He's not got much of a left foot, Beto, and sadly that was evidence of it there, because he's absolutely shanked that one a long, long way from goal. When you think that he's trying to hit it with not much balance, not much of a run-up, on his weaker foot with two players closing him down. Meanwhile, there are two completely unmarked Everton players stood on the left-hand side of the penalty area, McNeil and Doucouré, and both of them just stand there with their arms up, and Doucouré was actually doing what a lot of footballers do in that point, where he's pointing to his feet, saying, look, you pass the ball to me here, and we'll get something from that. But Beto, it's often the case with forward players that sort of win the ball. They want to sort of finish the move off themselves. Commentating on the Brentford-Manchester United game on Saturday, got the impression on 3 or 4 occasions Ivan Toney did great work to win the ball for Brentford, but then he wanted to finish the move off himself. He wanted to shoot himself, and there were at least 3 occasions where an easy square pass would have brought him more joy. And that's certainly that last move there from Beto reminded me of that there. He really should have looked to find a teammate, as Idrissa Gueye was fouled by Bruno Guimaraes, says the referee. No surprise that the Brazilian doesn't agree with that decision. I'm not sure there was too much in that either. We'll see from this replay. Bruno Guimaraes flicks the ball up, and I mean, for a start, Idrissa Gueye handballs it long before he's fouled, in my opinion. But the referee decided that it was the foul from Bruno Guimaraes that he disliked the most there, and that's going to be a free kick to Everton. 40 yards out. Newcastle have set up level with the edge of the D in terms of the offside. It's McNeil's ball into the box. It's over the head of Fabian Schär. There may still be half a chance for Tarkowski, but Dan Burns' clearance goes out of play. It's going to be a throw to Everton down the left-hand side. Quickly taken by Mikalenko. Idrissa Gueye now lifting this one into the penalty area. It's headed away by Lewis Hall. And now it's Harvey Barnes trying to start a counter-attack here for Newcastle down the left-hand side, but there's a bit of miscommunication, or well, quite a lot of miscommunication there between Bruno Guimaraes and Harvey Barnes, because Harvey Barnes had gone on an overlap down the left-hand side, and then seconds later Bruno Guimaraes plays him a square pass, and his teammate was about 10 yards away from him by that point. To now have the ball back at the edge of their own penalty area. Pickford to Onana down the left-hand side of Mikalenko. Heading towards Beto at the edge of the box. He's got all kinds of... it's such a bad ball from Beto. He had time to pick out Ashley Young. And looked like it was Doucouré that had charged into the box there as well. But his distribution sometimes lets him down, Beto. He's a forward that is strong. He's difficult to manage sometimes in terms of getting the ball off him. But sometimes his decision-making in terms of passing and shooting in the Everton games that I've seen can sometimes be a little bit amiss, and when you're the striker for Everton, you've got to take your chances because they don't create too many of them. They certainly haven't been doing this season, as Mikalenko fighting for the ball now down the left-hand side, doing what he can there against Bruno Guimaraes, but it is actually the Ukrainian international that gets the final touch, so it does go out for a goal kick to Newcastle. I mentioned the Newcastle bench earlier. Just to remind you again, it's Diallo, Willock, Gillespie, Karius, White, Parkinson, Dummett, Ritchie and Alex Murphy. As far as Everton's bench, it's Patterson, Coleman, Garner, Yusuf Chermiti, Keane, Harrison, Andre Gomez, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and goalkeeper João Virginia. Those are the 2 benches for the 2 sides. It's something, as I say, it would actually take a little bit too long for me to read you the entire injury list for Newcastle, but it's, as we know, they've had problems for some time this season getting a fully fit squad out there, as well as the long-term absence of Sandro Tonali and Nick Pope as well, of course, has been missing for some time, and there's been problems for Lewis Miley recently, Joe Linton, Wilson as well. Trippier can't shake off an injury. Botman is now out long-term as well. Livramento picked up an injury, as did Almiron, as did Lascelles in the last game. It really was the walking wounded by the end of that game for Newcastle. As for Everton, Dobbin, Danjuma and Dele Alli are the 3 first team players currently listed as unavailable. 33 minutes gone here. It is Newcastle 1, Everton 0. Everton just enjoying a bit more possession in these last few minutes. It's with Amadou Onana now to Ashley Young down towards Ben Godfrey. Ball over the top to pick out Beto. I mean, there's a shove in the back. There's an arm on him there, and he hits the deck. I don't think even he was wanting a penalty there. It was just one of those where he couldn't keep his balance. But Lewis Hall's clearance doesn't get too far. It's blocked off here by Amadou Onana. But then Bruno Guimaraes is being challenged there by Ashley Young. The referee allows play to go on because Newcastle had the advantage. Branthwaite heads it away, but not far enough. And Jacob Murphy picks this up. It's with Isak now into the box. Oh, he's going to get through to Longstaff. Longstaff trying to tee up a teammate in Harvey Barnes. Maybe Longstaff should have taken a touch and taken the shot himself, but Godfrey's able to slide in and he puts it out for a corner. Things looking nervy here for Everton. The problem there for Everton, I think it was the heavy touch from Mykolenko after the long ball played towards Isak. It was stopped just in front of the penalty area by Branthwaite. Didn't get much distance on it, and then it was a heavy touch from Mykolenko that played it straight to a Newcastle player. And from then, the ball was played into the box looking for Harvey Barnes, and it was Godfrey's challenge that puts the ball out for a corner kick now, which is going to be sent in from the left-hand side, in swinging by Montgomery. It's towards the edge of the 6-yard box, and Dan Burn claiming that it was a Everton player who touched that one last. Referee disagrees, and it will be a goal kick to Everton. Just looking at that, it's hard to tell even from that replay. But now looking at that second replay, I have to say that I do agree with Dan Burn. Actually, it does come off either a combination of Branthwaite, or indeed it's not Branthwaite, that it certainly looked like it might have been Beto, but the two of them both jumping for that. It's a quick ball played into the penalty area, trying to pick out Jacob Murphy. It was Isak in the role of playmaker this time, but it's a comfortable save there for Jordan Pickford. Just waiting now for his teammates to get a bit further forward. Clearance there from Pickford, headed back towards his own goal by Dan Burn. Still a bit of work here for Everton to do, for Newcastle to do, and in the end, Young is able to take advantage of that. He plays a quick ball into the penalty area, which won't get through towards Beto. Shares clearance up towards the halfway line, isn't particularly good. It's easily there. There's easy one back here by Amadou Onana. Square now to McNeil. Onana on the halfway line, back towards Branthwaite. And Tarkowski, slightly frustrating international break for Jared Branthwaite. Was called up to the England squad. Never really had much of a chance to actually show anything on the pitch, although I'm sure, of course, England's coaching staff would have had plenty of looks at him in training. It's never the same thing, though, is it? Fascinating to see how the Euros go this summer. But we've got just as, if not more, fascinating Premier League conclusion to come before then as well. It really has been a fantastic season. So many questions still unanswered in terms of relegation, in terms of who's going to win the league. And I've got to say that as we're into April and 3 teams are still within a couple of points of each other of being able to win the league, that's not something you normally see in the Premier League. And down the bottom, although the 2 sides, Burnley and Sheffield United, do seem to be adrift from the rest, mathematically there's still certainly enough scope for them to be able to make a bit of a fist of it, as we've got a break in play here now. The problem is Lewis Hall. He seems to be holding his abductor muscle there. We'll wait to see whether or not he's got a bit of an issue where he can, whether he's able to play on or not. Anyhow, must be thinking we're going to have to build a second physio room at this rate. The amounts of injuries Newcastle have, and wait to see whether or not Lewis Hall has got more of an issue here, whether or not he can actually play on or not. It's not looking too good for him now. I mean, he's been sat down for a good few minutes here, and hasn't really been able to, when he's standing up now, doing a bit of moving from side to side. Let's wait to see if he's able to play on or not. He's still being checked over here, Lewis Hall. If he was to go off, looking at that Newcastle bench, I say Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett. I suppose there are 2 ready replacements there, players who themselves had injury problems this season. Well, not just this. I mean, Paul Dummett really has had terrible luck with injuries over the last 2 or 3 years. Went from being a regular for Newcastle and regularly picked for his country to just trying to stay fit and trying to rediscover a little bit of that form. Hall is back on the field. Newcastle had a throw here down the left-hand side, getting towards the edge of the Everton penalty area. Nodded out by Young. It's going to be another throw to be taken here by Harvey Barnes. So gets that ball off Hall, and he tries to turn and pass Godfrey. It's taken out for another throw. Newcastle trying to put the pressure on here right about the corner flag. Anderson takes the throw on this time. It's flicked up in the air by Bruno Guimaraes, trying to turn away. Ooh, there's a bit of a challenge there. I thought that could argue that Anderson was caught there, really. And the referee is not bothered at all. I think he's just been given as a throw to Everton after all of that. It was Doucouré that came back to try and stop that little bit of a possession that Newcastle had right by the corner flag. Seemed like a bit of a kick out there, but the referee felt as though there was nothing wrong. In fairness, Elliot Anderson didn't make much of a meal of it either. Everton do win the ball back though in midfield, and it's Doucouré now backheels this to Beto. He's off down the right-hand side. He's got Lewis Hall for company, but Beto's still holding on to the ball. He finds Ashley Young, albeit via a challenge there from Hall. Now it's inside towards Dwight McNeil. McNeil trying to turn away from Longstaff at the edge of the area. No free kick there though, and that's a proper centre forwards challenge by by that I mean a very late and very bad one there from Beto coming in on Emil Kraft. See what's happened here as Kraft is trying to get across, and yeah, Beto with a lunge. Has he been booked for that? I think he should be, really. It's a poor challenge from Beto. But the referee has said he's giving him his final warning. I say he's a lucky man, Beto, because to me, it wasn't that it was a particularly sort of malicious challenge, but it was reckless. He doesn't try to get the ball. He's sliding in from the side. As I say, proper centre forwards challenge there from Beto. Martin Dubravka, pretty much barring a couple of crosses, has been a spectator in this first half. I mentioned the possession stats earlier in the half. Looking at them now as we hit the 41st minute, it's 59% possession for Newcastle, 41 for Everton. 7 efforts from Newcastle, of which 2 have been on target. Obviously, 1 has hit the back of the net, whereas Everton have had 3 efforts and not one of them has been on target. So really has been a quiet evening so far for Dubravka. Less so for Pickford, who might have some more work to do here as the ball is played down the right-hand side for Jacob Murphy. Was Kraft's ball into him. It's cleared back into midfield. And then there's a appeal for a handball as that might have struck Dwight McNeil. It's about 25 yards out, but the referee not interested, and Newcastle give it away now. It's picked off by Ashley Young, who's off down the middle now, trying to play into Beto. It's just a little bit under hit as Lewis Hall having to slide that one back towards Dubravka. He just undercooked that a little bit, did Lewis Hall, but Dubravka still got there ahead of Beto, although it's probably a little bit tenser than Dubravka would have liked there. And Everton now trying to go forward again here with Onana in towards the penalty area. It's down the right-hand side here. Ashley Young turning away from McNeil. McNeil holding this up, needs some support. He plays it back towards Onana. Finds Doucouré, who goes for goal. It's a good strike from Doucouré. Perhaps didn't quite get the whip on that shot that he wanted, because Dubravka, albeit it was a powerful shot, Dubravka makes a standing save there. Didn't even have to dive in the end there, the Newcastle keeper. And I thought the way that Doucouré had hit this, he'd got some power behind it, but he'd actually just sort of toe-ended it slightly. Was heading for the top corner. So at least we can note down a shot on target for Everton in this game. But not much more than that for the time being for Sean Dyche's side. To try and find something else in this second half. Of course, Newcastle will be looking to try and build on this one goal. It's not been too much work for Pickford since the goal. There's been certainly plenty of work for his defenders. But Pickford's not really had to make much of a save, claiming a couple of crosses back. But here comes Harvey Barnes, though. Breaking through the middle, gets away from Onana, finds Isak. Isak had space down the right to pick out Crapper. That's really good work from McNeil to challenge. It's almost like this last-ditch challenge there from McNeil to keep that ball from reaching the right-hand side. It's now a quick pass over towards the edge of the penalty area for Jordan Pickford. Pickford up towards the halfway line. Headed back towards Beto. Damburn gets in the way of that, though. It is now a chance here for Lewis Hall. Turning away, doesn't find ball down the channel there to Barnes that he wanted. So Everton now have it back here with Onana. Over the halfway line. Oh, the pass was on for Beto, cut out just before the penalty area, and Newcastle have it now down the right-hand side. It's with Anderson, gets it into Murphy. Murphy, square now to Bruno Guimaraes. On the right-hand side, Longstaff. Right-hand side here again for Kraft. Newcastle finish this first half as strongly as possible. Played back towards halfway line. It's now with Murphy pushing forward here. Murphy getting towards the penalty area, turning away from Amadou Onana, seeing up Bruno Guimaraes, who wanted to go for goal. There's a challenge coming in, and then Pickford comes out. He can only parry the attempted pass there from Harvey Barnes. It's still on the left-hand edge of the penalty area here with Lewis Hall. He's got 2 Everton players for company. He tries to put a cross in, does put a cross in. It's headed down, and it's a cross goal by Murphy. Great save from Jordan Pickford. Didn't look as though Lewis Hall had any chance of getting that cross into a teammate, but Everton somehow allowed it. And a second ball coming in, headed away by Tarkowski. We're into injury time at the end of this first half. I'm expecting there should be a good few minutes. We've had that goal being scored. We've had an injury there to Lewis Hall. And we had the brief pause whilst players observing Ramadan were able to break their fast. So we're going to get 4 minutes of injury time at the end of this first half. Newcastle still leading Everton by 1-0. Forest still leading Fulham by 2-0. That game is into injury time at the end of the first half. Goalless between Bournemouth and Palace, and they have just kicked off in the last few seconds at the London Stadium. West Ham against Tottenham. Also to tell you as well that we're 15 minutes into a game, a very important game at the top of League One between Portsmouth and Derby. That's also 0-0, and that game is also available on our service. Well, it's Newcastle just slowing things down now here in midfield. We'll attempt to try and push forward too quickly. Just to remind you as well, after the midweek games today, tomorrow and Thursday, full round of Premier League fixtures and Championship games on this service at the weekend. And then next midweek we hit the ground running with the quarter-finals in all the European Cup competitions. Bruno Guimaraes there was brought down at the edge of his own penalty area. Of Idrissa Gueye and Dwight McNeil. The two of them weren't happy with that decision, but referee says play on, and Newcastle certainly have them. They've gone down the left-hand side quickly. It's a Hall in towards Elliot Anderson. Good little trio that for Newcastle down the left. Anderson, Hall and Barnes. Now a ball over the top is too high there for Isak. Be able to get on the end of that one. Easy claim there for Pickford. Long clearance from him, and his teammate might even get through towards Ashley Young. For a second there it looked as though Dan Burn misjudged the flight of the ball, which wouldn't be like him at all. Makes sense really, Dan Burn being such a tall player. He's also very, very good in the air, but on this occasion just slightly misjudged it. Newcastle were able to clear their lines, and now it reaches Isak at the edge of the penalty area. Gets stopped initially, finds another chance to go for goal, and it's over the bar. This will be a worry for Sean Dyche. His side on 2 or 3 occasions have seemingly dealt with the threat, but they're not able to get rid of the second ball. And the same again here. After Barnes is stopped by Tarkowski, the fact that Isak is able to have 4 or 5 touches and then set himself up for an effort, which in the end is over the bar. There is a deflection, or is it a save from Pickford? I don't think Pickford gets a touch on it, but I think it does come off the boot of Branthwaite or Tarkowski. So with a minute and a half of injury time still to play, it will be a corner kick to Newcastle down the left-hand side. So Murphy setting this one up. It's going to be an in-swinger from Jacob Murphy. Lifting this one towards the edge of the 6-yard box. It's headed down, but it was headed down across the 6-yard box rather than towards goal. Quite the header there that Anderson wanted. So Pickford now able to clear his lines. From Pickford, picks out Beto, holds it up and then goes back towards Vitaly Mikalenko. It's now with Onana. Mikalenko again, back towards halfway line. He's waiting, but it's Idrissa Gueye for the time being. But it needs to be quick. We've got less than 30 seconds of injury time to go. Meanwhile, in the 4th minute of injury time at the City Ground, it's potentially game over as Morgan Gibbs-White has now got on the score sheet there for Nottingham Forest. So it's Nottingham Forest 3, Fulham 0. Fulham could have been 4-1 down at one stage in the game away at Sheffield United at the weekend, but the 4th goal was disallowed for a marginal foul. I think it was a marginal offside. I think it was a foul in that game, and then no, it was an offside, I beg your pardon, for obstruction, and then after that Fulham were able to get it back to 3-3. But just as I say that, the referee has called time here at the end of the first half at St James's Park. It is Newcastle United 1, Everton 0. It's Alexander Isak with the early goal, putting Newcastle in front. I'm back in 15 minutes for second half off Tube studio commentary.